Hey there, guys, and welcome to the very first episode of Not to Be Trusted. In this little web series that I've created, basically what we're going to be talking about is sort of an overview of what magic is, how we look at our magic now, how we think we should look at our magic, how our audience perceives our magic, how you can adjust their perception. We're going to be talking about different effects that you can do, which are very simple, very easy. We're going to take a look at classic props and finding uses for them that are very unorthodox but still effective. We're going to be doing a lot of things. But to start off, let's begin with an examination of what magic is. Some would call it a demonstration of skill, or prestidigitation. Others might refer to magic as that feeling you get when you've just experienced this unexplainable occurrence of wonder or amazement. Magic as a whole is all of these things, but it's also so much more. Confused? Well, allow me to clear away the sparkly cobwebs and enlighten your mind. When a magician stands on stage and begins by producing, say, a silk scarf, and a normal individual sitting in the audience very well might be thinking what most everyone else around him is. Where did the silk come from? Well, there is, of course, a moment of surprise as said silk comes into view, but the feeling is immediately replaced by the above statement, thereby reducing the silk production to a little more of a puzzle. Puzzles are not magic, okay? However, if the performing magician had integrated the silk production into a polished routine, not only would the production have flowed, but it would have made sense to the audience. And I realize it's probably wondering where I'm going with this, but I promise you that we're well on our way to the main point. As a college student, I did very well in the writing portion of my entrance exams and was immediately placed into Journalism 220. Now, while the class itself did not interest me in the slightest, as I had hoped it would, and no pun intended, I did take very good notes, which has always been a particular strength of mine. Now, this notebook from my class, it was laid to rest with all of the others, becoming a mere example of the collegiate accoutrements for many months, just gathering dust, which was indeed a shame, because it was only recently that I opened it up and discovered the pure gold within it. Now, to start off, I'm going to outline for you several factors which I was taught in my 220 class, which are equally as relevant in magic as they are in the field of journalism. This is one of those things that we're going to start talking about, which is comparing traits of magic to traits of other topics, which don't necessarily appear to make sense or intertwine at first, but eventually do. So the first area of thought shall be titled, as it was in my notebook, which is what makes a story interesting. Okay. Now, my professor, Jason Nix, told us that there were 7 main points. Okay, 7 points, which could help us understand exactly what we needed to know about journalism. Impact, immediacy, proximity, prominence, novelty, conflict, and emotions. Now, those 7 points, as far as I am concerned, you cannot look at those words and tell me that you don't see how they can be applied to your magic. Now, in case you're having trouble, I'm going to break down each and every one over several weeks, so you'll have a full understanding of their significance. So the first one we're going to start with, today's episode, will be focused on impact and immediacy. So, immediacy. There are quite a few magic producers out there who like to push the fact that their effects are quick and visual. There's no skill required or no practice required or completely self-working. Folks in this day and age are sadly obsessed with sort of getting everything now. They want it now, just the way they want it, whether their desire be a magic trick or food or even a response to your Facebook status. The younger generation, for the most part, has grown up thinking that there's no need to put the time in, when you can just go ahead and order an effect, which does everything for you. Now, anything that is worth doing is also worth doing right. And magic is no different. I mean, any magician worth his or her salt realizes that in order to better themselves, they must slow down. Okay, you gotta slow down and examine the details of your performance. I mean, in my opinion, just my personal opinion, we should all just stop and breathe. Okay, just stop and breathe. Now, I like to think of a well-polished routine in musical terms. Sure, you are the conductor, okay? So you're the conductor, and the cards or coins or silks or whatever your props are, your instruments. They are your instruments, your tools. And treat them the way that they deserve to be treated, and they will respond in kind. Handle them confidently. Don't let a move be a move. Make it a masterpiece. Give every part of your effect and routine its due, and as I said before, they will repay you in kind. At the end of your rework, showing off a quick trick should no longer be the goal. Okay? Instead, you'll have created a magical symphony. That's sort of the word I'm looking for. You'll have created a magical symphony for all to enjoy and experience. Take a moment to consider the various pieces of magic that you perform within your current act, okay? And we're going to pay attention to the impact here, okay? So we dealt with immediacy, we're now going to talk about impact. Now, when you look at your effects, how well do they play in the real world, as opposed to your friends, or your family, or your mirror? Are they engaging, or does the magic sort of go off the deep end, okay? Do your audience members come up to you after the show and genuinely thank you for your performance? Are they moved by what you did? I think these are all questions which should be constantly in your mind when you're structuring a new act. Dr. Donna Rosen, who is a beautifully intelligent friend of mine, much smarter than myself, she once told me that a performance which creates meaning or importance in the hearts and minds of your audience does not necessarily present itself in a form which can be viewed in a palpable manner. All we can really do is just hope that we brought a little wonder to their lives. Just sort of discovering that this was indeed so is one of the most magnificent feelings a magician can have. And if you should ever experience one of those moments, just cherish it, okay? Just take it to heart, because those moments are few and far between. Finally, today, we're going to talk about proximity, okay? So, proximity is generally defined as, quote, nearness in space, time, or relationship. And the word proximity in terms of journalism has two separate meanings, okay? The first being how physically close the story or event is to you, and the second connotation refers, as I'm sure you've already gathered by now, to the mental side of things. And we were often instructed in class to examine a story, okay? Examine the story and ask the following two questions in sequence. Number one, who was affected and why were they affected? Now, these two queries may easily be applied to a performer's style of performing magic if one were so inclined. While answering the first question may seem simple, it is not as easy as you may first believe. Really. An obvious choice of words might be spelled out like this. The audience was affected by my magic. Are you sure about that? How can you tell? Did I not just explain how physical reactions differ or are merely non-existent? Some participants will scream or yell, but still others could very possibly clam up. It doesn't take a smart magician to tell the difference between a shy spectator and one who's merely thinking very, very hard about what you just showed them. And close observation and constant flashes of experience are the key. Either way, you must be aware of the proper etiquette and the steps for acting appropriately. And this sort of preparation includes a thorough investigation into the possible ramifications of your trick before you go anywhere with them. Now, as I've mentioned, if the mental proximity of your effect is too close to home, you may very well offend somebody instead of amaze them. And one of our many jobs as magicians is to tiptoe the line between reality and the impossible. You know, I just be wary. Okay, that's sort of my main advice of today, is just be wary of stumbling over that thread, lest it should break. Now, I'm going to kind of stop rambling for today, but hopefully you got something from this. And I sincerely hope that Not to Be Trusted will assist in shining a light, however small, upon you. Most of us sort of navigate the bumpy roads that constitute our lives without ever taking a moment to appreciate and experience the magic already within ourselves. All that's left to do is find it. Thanks very much, you guys. See you next week.